Hello, everyone. This is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about, touching a little bit about yesterday. I did release a video about the Michigan Attorney General, Dana Nessel. I don't know if that's going to get me in some trouble some places. But some people are mad about it, taking her words about drags for every school and etc. If you haven't seen it, I think you should watch it and share it around. But also you have the mayor of New York who said some crazy stuff. And I just don't understand the doubling down, and the Democrats want to double down on some really bad things while at the same time acting like it's not a big deal when they're the ones who are making it a thing. It's like they do these things and they hope you don't notice. And when you notice, they're like, dude, what's with you? Why do you care so much? I'm like, why are you doing it to such weird lengths? Like, you can't tell me it's not weird that New York City spent over $200,000 on drag stuff. Like, that's weird. You can't tell me it's not weird. Also want to address some red flag laws in Texas. They are really mad at their Senator John Cornyn, who has been working with the Democrats and on this bill that's like a compromise. Now, not everything in it is awful. There's some things that are that make sense, but red flag laws are can be a danger. Well, they can be fatal, and there was one case in 2018 where they showed up at to take weapons from a man, and it ended in his life. So I want to revisit that in case you weren't aware that happened at that time and some of the dangers from it. And also we'll be getting to some other stuff, man. The other day, I think we touched on it a little bit, but we didn't go into his statements. But Joe Biden went on this big rant about oil and how the Democrats are really trying to paint it as if they're just so greedy and they need to do the patriotic thing and not take money. And Exxon clapped back at him, but the day before he wrote his letter to like the oil companies and stuff, the American Petroleum Institute, I think it's API, I think is what it stands for. They'd sent him out a letter just suggesting certain things that they could do to lower the cost and to help encourage people to, get the oil and increase supply. It's a very risky business, especially since the president is someone who promised to shut them down. So you have all these officials that are like, oh, you guys are so greedy. We need you to ramp up production. It's like, am I going to be in business 10 years from now? Because it kind of seems like you want to destroy my business. I mean, you went on the campaign trail and you said you wanted to destroy my business. Joe Biden literally walked up to a little girl, shook her hand, was like, I promise you, I'm not going to work with them. I'm gonna end the fossil fuel industry. That's what he said. That is what he said. And people, I can't believe there's people who look at, pump their $6 gas and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's not Biden's fault. It's totally Putin. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. But we'll talk about lots of things today. But before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I have on the website. I have the video that I posted up on the website today with Dana Nessel. You should go ahead and watch it. You should go ahead and share it. I saw that the chair of the Michigan Republican Party shared it, and Tudor Dixon, who's running for governor, also shared it. I know there's some mainstream press who watches their stuff, so I'm kind of wondering how much blowback there might be from the video itself, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they don't want to draw more attention to it. So I'll get some more people to retweet it. And we'll see if we can stir up some trouble. Um, yeah, we went through her words and her dialogue yesterday, so I'm not gonna go totally into that. There's other people to talk about, but you can also go to the website, check out different articles I've written, check out different merchandise that we have at the store, like the "My Money, My Business" T-shirt. We have the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document, and we got Fourth of July coming up, so you might want to get some patriotic stuff like that. The "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For" is a good shirt, and I did an ad about this. Joe Biden shirt, the "Now White Supremacy Defeat Joe Biden" shirt with the list of some of his racist stuff on the back. And one of the things on the list is you can't go into a 7-Eleven with a slight Indian accent. And so it was Donut Day. So, I think it was the GOP who like did a video. It was like Happy Donut Day, and they brought that up. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a good point. And so I did an ad with that shirt. And so someone had went back yesterday and commented on it, like, now do Trump. And I'm just like, what clip do you suggest that I use? Because all these people, when they see racism of Biden, they want to point the finger like, what about Trump? I'm like, what about him? I'm like, yeah, like I could list so many examples of Biden. Give me some examples of Trump. Now there's a big list, I think like Vox or somebody put on. But when you go through that list, like a lot of stuff is hearsay, a lot of stuff is um poorly interpreted or misinterpreted or just misinformation and straight up lies. So I'm not saying the man hasn't said some offensive things, but Joe Biden has like a record, like a long-standing record, and then they do things that have been harmful to minorities and so on. Well, coddling and insulting us, and I mean, you ain't black thing. I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, man. I think it's really egregious to go into a black church and lie about your participation in the civil rights movement. That's awful. So anyway, I don't know what these people want. they just they just hate Trump so much. They'll do that stuff and they don't even like Biden like that, but they just feel like they need to clap back. Maybe it's just to like justify what they've done. I don't know, to justify their vote, even though they may not like Biden and they didn't like him then, but they just feel like they have to be right, so they have to keep clowning on Trump. With now, there's reasons people don't like Trump that I'm like that. That sounds legit. I get that. I understand, but a lot of people hate Trump for reasons that are like made up. Like it's really bizarre. But anyway, this shirt's available at the website. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com. Anything that you guys can do to support, I really appreciate it. Whether it's $10, $20, $15, more than that, you guys can go ahead and do that at the website. If you cannot do that, I know times are tough, but I do highly encourage you to do that if you can. You can just share videos, share memes, share articles for sure, and just encourage other people like, hey, you should check this girl out. I really appreciate that. I appreciate every comment and everything you guys do. Also appreciate Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. No one cares. There's no one to snitch on. You're gonna have to get one of those cute little mugs that I got that say you are not that special and just collect your little tears in there, because no one cares. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices, and that's what I'm doing here. Appreciate them. So you guys know that I like to start off with something funny. So I do have a really good meme. I've already shared it on Facebook, so I'm sure many of you, hundreds of you, have actually already seen this. But before I show the meme, I'm going to just one more announcement. Tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to have Emily from the Equal Rights Institute on from Let's TikTok about it. Now, if you don't know what the Equal Rights Institute does, they like to train pro-life people so they don't have crappy arguments. That's what they do. They want to have pro-life people be able to make better arguments, so they can be more compelling and more convincing to people to get people to change hearts and minds. So if you're pro-life, if you're pro-choice, if you're kind of on the fence about stuff, it will be a really good night. We will like look at questions and comments and stuff. So if you have any questions and issues you'd like us to tackle, you can go ahead and put them in the comments. We're going to be looking at some TikTok videos. The purpose of the show There's some pretty wild stuff on people put on TikTok. There are really bad arguments. I'm gonna try to find some wild ones that we can laugh at, but also ones that are compelling. I'll try to find ones that I find that are also the most compelling. I don't think any are gonna stump us, but we're gonna try to, I guess, tackle it as we'll have some laughs, but as maturely as possible, because that is their goal, to change hearts and minds. So it'll be instructive, I think. I know everybody who follows me is not pro life, and I've gotten into back and forth with people about it, and people have found that I'm aggressively pro life, but still very respectful and persuasive, but maybe not like have pushed everyone all the way, but they can see that I'm knowledgeable, at least in the area of what I'm talking about. So at least sharpen your debate skills and get some good information, because Emily's had some good information. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So she's going to be a great resource. So again, join us tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and join us live. If you can't be there live, you can watch it back, and it's going to be on Facebook, it's going to be on YouTube, and it's going to be on Twitch. So you can watch either three ways. And in the event that something happened and we no longer were on YouTube or Facebook or something like that, you can one of the three. We'll be on one of the three. But all should be good. Okay, my meme of the day. Again, a lot of people have already seen it, but gun owners, red flag laws with Johnny Depp here and Amber Heard. And so people have like, oh yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's accurate. That's factual. So you may not I'm sure you guys, a lot of people know maybe more about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp than they do about red flag laws. So the idea of red flag laws, and again, states kind of vary from their position and stuff on it and how they execute it. But if you are some kind of danger, someone can report that you're some kind of danger, police will get the order or whatever to be able to go and confiscate your firearms, and you will then have to prove that you deserve your firearms. So it has a good intention, but I feel that if something is going on and it's serious enough to strip you of a natural right, your right to bear arms, then you should be able to have some kind of due process. Now, people are like, well, we need red flags for like, think about, someone mentioned today in the comments when I had that meme, they're like, what about Uvalde and other stuff? I'm like, okay, Uvalde, that person actually committed crimes. And and people were saying, well, they're law-abiding citizens until they broke the law. I'm like, no, they weren't. They were breaking some laws. The Uvalde shooter was crazy. He had like a bag of cats he was torturing, and they were dead and stuff. He like mutilated his face. That's so this person's not well, but he was like threatening people. There was, I don't know, I didn't hear this in the news. I just saw this on someone was covering it, so I don't know if this was confirmed, but also like threatening people in his church with the knives and other stuff. But I did see and did read reports that he would threaten women who weren't come on to him, threaten to rape them, that his ex-girlfriend he was abusive with. So he would shoot BB guns at stuff at people. So he was a terror. He was a terror. So, but if you don't report things, then they're going to have a clean record, and they're going to pass a background check, and he did pass a background check. So for people who are like, we gotta stop these guns getting into the wrong hands, well, people need to be prosecuted and they need to be convicted of crimes. So there's that. And the Buffalo shooter, but New York has red flag laws, and that person actually announced out loud, like in school, that they wanted to have a school shooting, and they still got their firearm legally. So you unless you execute things on your end, these things are gonna not do the job that you intend for them to do. But there's also other people who are innocently law abiding citizens who can really have some harm done to them. Now, there's 10 Republicans who are in a compromise. And one day, I think it was Monday, I was going to come in here hot about this and just trash Republicans. Like the episode was going to be called Republicans Are Trash or something like along those lines. I was like, these no good for nothing Republicans, because there was because they're not going to be able to move any legislation and unless there's at least 10 Republicans in the Senate who are willing to compromise. And they have 10 Republicans signed on. And the some of the compromises, not all of them are bad. Like one looking into like having background checks extend like to the like a juvenile record. That makes sense because there's kids out here doing some wild stuff. But again, you can't be downplaying crazy stuff that kids do. I know in California, unfortunate timing for them, right after Uvalde, there was something that went into effect where you don't have to automatically report things that kids do that are, might be threatening and violent and stuff in the classroom to like authorities, because I the ACLU was thought it was good because those sort of things disproportionately impact black and brown people. And I'm like, black and brown people are victims of crime. So I mean, it doesn't matter who the victim is. Just being a victim is bad, but like you got to think about it from the victim's perspective, not just a person who's I don't know, maybe they want them to be able to have a chance at redemption and not go down the path, because once they start getting in trouble with the law enforcement, it just keeps going and going and going. But do you think like not being held accountable is going to like help in the long run, or is it going to create more situations where you have someone in like the Parkland shooter was reported several times, and he did what he did. So you got to do something. The idea to me that lowering the age, which we're talking about that too, but I don't remember if that was one of the things they were trying to ultimately agree to buy the firearm. Maybe it was. I don't think it makes sense, like the lowering the age to 18. I don't like, what's the mindset that all of a sudden when you turn 21 you're not crazy. Like if you had those sort of intentions maybe early in life, you've now matured out of it, or are you hoping that they just committed some crimes along the way and it gets picked up on a background check? So to me it doesn't make sense. If you're saying they're just too immature, you don't believe that because you're still accepting people into the military. And Biden's like, well, it's different because they're trained and they're they're supervised. And it's like, bro, the point of the Second Amendment is to fight against a tyrannical government. So the kids can go ahead and fight for you, but they can't exercise their Second Amendment rights. It doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Like we can recruit them, but they can't stand for themselves. Not even like a 19-year-old woman living on her own can have a firearm to protect herself. That's crazy to me. It doesn't make any sense. Like people do not turn 21 all of a sudden they're mature. If anything, I think there's a lot of people under not even 21, like 15 to 23, like on TikTok. I can usually tell if it's a kid between those ages because the arguments and the thinking is just like they got to be like 22 years old. And I look on their profile and they all put their ages for some reason. I'm like, yep, it's a kid. I know that's like an adult, but I'm like, I knew it. I knew they were between 15 and 23. So if we're going to raise the age of adulthood, which people are less held accountable than they would have been at particular ages than in the past, then we need to raise adulthood with voting, which frankly could save the country. But I know that's not what they want to do. There are people who want to lower the age to voting to 16. So it just doesn't make sense. People can engage in contracts and again sign up for the military. Doesn't make sense. But the thing that was really upsetting people was the red flag laws. And so Senator Corman actually went on Dana Lash's show to talk about some of these things. And so I did listen in on that segment. And so he kept saying that he's like totally against a federal red flag law. But they want to give money to states to fund those things. Now he says it's not an incentive, but if you're giving money for those things, how is it not kind of an incentive? But he says he wants to make it very clear that he only wants to have money for states that will make sure that people get their due process. And I'm like, um, how? But one thing that they didn't say in the interview is, because apparently it makes it seem like he thought that there were states that weren't doing such a good job, and maybe there's states that have better red flag laws, but I don't know what his standard is of, yep, that's a good red flag law. So I did like tweet at Dana. I was like, this is what you should ask him here. Cause I want to know which state does he feel is doing it right. So we have some kind of basis. Because apparently there's states that he's saying don't do due process. But he wants to make sure in plain English, as clear as day, so courts don't have like leeway to really interpret it, which they'll do what they want sometimes if there's an activist hard enough, and then just has to work its way up the court docket. um I don't know what his standard is on what's a good red flag law. So a story that went around, and this is a couple years old, but there was a man in Maryland, and the police showed up to retrieve his gun. I don't think they ever released what um specifically the reasons why they went there, other than getting the order to go. And I don't know who made the order because that's kept confidential. But it ended up resulting in this man dying.
What happened?
Okay, so our officers responded out to 103 Linwood Avenue about 5:17 this morning. They were called to serve an ERPO, which is the Emergency Relief Protective Order. That is the quote-unquote red flag law that went into effect in October. So our officers came to serve one of those orders. The respondent of that order, or the person they were trying to serve, answered the door armed with a handgun. Officers immediately told him to come with them. A fight ensued over the handgun. That handgun went off. It did not strike anybody. Our officers fired back, and the suspect has died from those injuries.
And where was the suspect shot?
I don't know where he was shot right now. We're still on the scene investigating, but he has died from those injuries.
Suspect was a man or a woman? What were the nature of that order?
An adult male. I haven't seen the order. I'm assuming you can get a copy of that from the courthouse. That will have all of that information of why he was seen as a risk. So those documents are court documents and can be brought from the courthouse.
What time did this happen?
In the house?
There were other adults in the house.
Could you describe the nature of who else was there? And
Not at this time. Not at this time.
So this was early, like fresh on the scene when it happened, and their like attitude was like, oh, we could have prevented something. I'm like, they came to this man's house. He didn't know who called on him, for what purpose or whatever. They wanted him to turn in his gun, and he was upset about it, which I can imagine that most people, I guess in that situation, you should you both have guns, but they have the guns and are likely to get away with killing you. So you might, it's up to you, but you in that situation, you want to keep your life. That kind of situation, you might want to go ahead and comply there. But there was a struggle for the gun at one point, and the gun went off, didn't hit anyone, but then a police officer shot him dead, and he died on the scene. They came to his home to take his property without him having proper due process, and he was killed on his property when they came to take his property, to deprive him of his Second Amendment rights, without due process. So this happened in Maryland in 2018. In 2019, there was all kind of articles about it. I don't think a ton about it, but just like people who were commenting about the dangers of red flag laws. But according to this is in a local Baltimore story. Again, this is an old article. According to police, two officers serving a new extreme risk protective order, red flag law, a Maryland protective order to remove guns from a household, shot and killed the man listed in that order. Under the law, family, police, mental health professionals can all ask for protective orders to remove weapons, said Sergeant Jacqueline David with Ann Ardrell County Police. That man was identified as Gary J. Willis of the same address. Officials said Willis answered the door while holding the handgun. Willis was then placed the gun next to the door. When officers began to serve him the order, Willis became irate and grabbed his gun. One of the officers tried to take the gun from Willis, but instead Willis fired the gun. The second officer fired the gun, striking Willis. He died at the scene. So the family, one of his relatives were just, it was I believe a niece was like, they were just so confused. They were like, my uncle wouldn't have hurt anyone. Now I don't know. I read a couple stories about it. I don't know what more their justification is, other than the police were like, well, we could have really stopped something there if we hadn't have done that. But my opinion is that if something very serious is going on, you should be able to, I don't know, if it's go to the court and actually let him have his day in court. Like you can't just presume guilt and then they have to prove their innocence. And not how our system works. At least give them an opportunity, right? Just not just showing up people's doors unexpected, and then this kind of chaos can ensue. But if someone has some kind, says that they're going to do something, there's some kind of conspiracy to commit a crime. If they're like in Uvalde, there was a bunch of violent stuff that happened on then, like where you actually could have charged someone. If someone is having some kind of they're a danger because of their not mentally there are steps that you can take according to whatever your local laws are. But if it's that serious, then you need to take those steps. I don't trust red flag laws like this, especially because I think our government can be very corrupt, and I think they've proven that time and time again. I mean, through multiple ways. But not too long ago, when Biden was also in the White House, but he was vice president at the time, our IRS was weaponized against conservatives. If you don't remember, that was a pretty big scandal. There's some people who only believe that Obama's only scandal was wearing a tan suit. Not true. Not true in the least bit. But that was one of their scandals with the IRS. And also, a recent scandal would be how the White House coordinated with the National School Board Association. They were in communication with each other. Now, it wasn't the whole school board, like the heads on it. It was like two people. But still, they had the National School Board write a letter to the Justice Department, to the DOJ. And in the letter, they were asking, could the DOJ use things like the Patriot Act on some of these like activists and parents or whatever who they're deeming a threat and stuff across the nation. But what the kicker, because you might be like, well, I mean, using the Patriot Act, that's extreme. But if you might like, well, if they're threatening teachers and staff and all this other kind of stuff, then you can kind of understand, like, okay, but one of the examples that they used at the like in their footnotes of like articles dealing with these parents, one of them was a father who showed up in Virginia, which Loudoun County, and his daughter was sexually assaulted in a bathroom. Now, there were all kinds of stuff going on at the meeting with parents like protesting about the boys and girls bathrooms, etc. In critical race theory, all kinds of different stuff. He was there for his daughter, and actually, the superintendent was asked, like, and he said there hasn't been any incidents in the bathroom, and his daughter was literally sexually assaulted. He wanted to know what's going on. So the father ended up getting rowdy, and he ended up getting carried away, belly hanging out. There's pictures, all of them, like all over the world. And then he ends up in a footnote in this letter. They're like, here's an example of one of these terrorist parents, or these, So again, they wrote that letter for the DOJ, but it was coordinated with the White House and the National School Board Association. Now, the National School Board Association did like everybody else on the board who wasn't a part of it was like, that was not appropriate. And I don't know how much they didn't think it was appropriate beforehand, or they're just like, this is some really bad blowback, man. This is not going to make sense in the long run. And we covered that a lot here when that stuff happened. And there's articles also on the website that you guys can check out. But this is another example of having a corrupt government. Like, our government was never supposed to be as big as it is. And it's unfortunate that we have to spend so much time thinking about it, that we have to spend so much time being concerned about who gets in and who's going to have the levers of power. But what kills me is that people on the left can think that someone like Trump is this big authoritarian figure, and they don't trust the government when it's someone they don't like in charge. But when it's someone they do like in charge, they're I don't know, they're just asleep at the wheel. As a matter of fact, that was part of Biden's appeal. A lot of people were just like, I want politics to be boring and go back to whatever. And not because it's valid, because he's still like a big government gonna ruin your lives kind of person. But they just have chosen to be asleep at the wheel. Now, I like government being as small as possible. Myself, I'm not like libertarian enough to be libertarian. I'm still very conservative, but um, I'm not into these gun flag laws. But in Texas, they did. There's a GOP resolution that rebuked Cornyn. This is by Texas Scorecard. GOP resolution rebukes Cornyn, condemns a proposed violation of the Second Amendment and our God-given rights. They said in an unambiguous terms, the Republican Party of Texas Platform Committee unanimously approved last night a resolution condemning the compromise package the U.S. Senate John Cornyn crafted unilaterally with Democrat colleagues to impose new gun control laws. Earlier this week, Cornyn announced that he had taken the lead in working with Democrats to reach a compromise on gun restrictions. Among other things, Cornyn's proposal would incentivize states to impose red flag laws. The purpose of such laws is to deny otherwise law-abiding citizens of their right to purchase a firearm. In circumventing the Constitution's due process protections, the GOP resolution describes such laws as a pre-crime punishment of people not adjudicated guilty. Also included the proposed is an increase in waiting times and age of citizens in purchase a firearm. So yeah, I was right. They did include that. So it lists a couple different people, but some of the people that you may recognize: Susan Collins, not surprised about that. Lindsey Graham, he's pro red flag laws. You got Mitt Romney, who was a part of that. And if if Oz wins the Senate race, he's going to be another Republican who's expressed support for red flag laws. So that's concerning. But who knows if he's going to win, because he's really high on favorables. And last the polling I looked at, had him underwater. So I don't know that I thought that was a bad pick from Trump, but it is what it is. He won the race, but there's gonna be some things that you are gonna have to be concerned about down the line. So there's a little bit about red flag laws. Maybe we'll have like another gun expert on here and talk a little bit more about these things. I don't know how they all vary from state to state, but I would like Cornyn to say what they think is kind of the gold standards as far as how states apply them. And again, New York has them, and we had a big shooting in Buffalo not too long ago. So with someone who had like expressed things that are like, that's a red flag, y'all. He said he wants to commit a school shooting. But let's move on. So the mayor of New York City made an interesting tweet the other day. Drag storytellers and the libraries and schools that support them are advancing a love of diversity, personal expression, and literacy that is the core to what our city embraces. And my friend, Pastor Dr. Darrell Scott, said, you need to stop smoking that stuff. So, Eric Adams is kind of puzzling to me, because I'm just like, dude, if you could just like play it a bit straighter. these folks are going to need some help, like getting a real good nominee. Like they don't have a good bench. They proved that they had a big bench last time and it ended up with Joe Biden, and they're concerned. So they're so concerned that they know Biden shouldn't be running again. And I don't think he is going to run again, but they're considering him running again. And I'm telling you, Hillary Clinton is like seriously considering running again. Especially if she can, I don't know, restore some more of her image. I think that's a pretty serious thing. Now, I, I thought her age probably would have stopped her, but if she's like, hey, all these old men are going for it, I might as well go ahead and do it as well. I don't know. But they don't have a good bench. But Eric Adams, and I'm not saying he'd be a good person to run, but I think he'd be the kind of type of person that would probably shoot for it anyway. And if you're gonna stand out from the crowd, you can just not be crazy, man. Now I know a lot of people, especially when you're running in a primary like that, there are people who are like, I gotta be extreme as possible to kind of like get some passionate people who will volunteer, knock doors, donate money, because a lot of these people really need cash going in. A lot of people are just running basically to get cash. If I'm being frank with you, like Beto is a money machine. I at this point in time, I've got to think he knows he can't win Texas, but does he do stunts like the Uvalde press conference thing to help because he thinks it's going to help him win? I think don't get me wrong, I think he's trying to a degree, but I think he's more interested in getting donations from like DC or something, from elitist out there. So not everyone's thinking like the long game. And this man isn't apparently either. And this is such a weird hill to die on, folks. Because there's a lot of people you can invite to your schools because you love literacy, because you love reading, because you love books. Like, have you ever just thought, just like inviting out authors? I really, like, for those of you who don't know, I write books. I really, really enjoy going to schools. I really enjoy that because kids are funny, they're bright, they're excited. Their excitement stirs something within you. I'm like, oh, I gotta go home and write another book because kids loved it, and I love the kids. I mean, it's one of the kids asked me when the last time I did it. They're like, do you like being an author? Like, and I'm like, on days like today, yeah, it's really great because they just pump you up, man. I really like doing school readings. So I mean, you could always get like people like that. You could get people in like Spider-Man costumes, Elsa costumes, stuff like that. Why a drag queen? Why a drag queen? And in New York City, they're spending over $200,000 on that stuff. Why? I'm gonna play a video for you guys, and just let you know, it is a drag queen. This has gone viral, and I've seen this video before, but people were like sharing around yesterday because it doesn't make any sense with this sort of background in drag that these are the people that they want like everywhere reading to kids. It just doesn't make sense.
What in the hell has a drag queen ever done to make you have so much respect for them and admire them so much? Other than put on makeup and jump on the floor and writhe around and do sexual things on stage. I have absolutely no idea why you would want that to influence your child. Would you want a stripper or a porn star to influence your child? It makes no sense at all. A drag queen performs in a nightclub for adults. There is a lot of filth that goes on, a lot of sexual stuff that goes on. And backstage, there's a lot of nudity, sex, and drugs. Okay? So I don't think that this is an avenue you would want your child to explore. They could explore dressing up at home, like we all did, like all gay boys did. We all dressed at home and we had a great time. We had a great time with our girlfriends, putting on makeup, trying on clothes, things like that. But to actually get them involved in drag is extremely, extremely irresponsible on your part. And I understand you might want to look like you're with it, that you're cool, that you're woke, that you're not a Nazi, that you're not a homophobe, whatever it may be. But you can raise your child to be just a normal, regular, everyday child without including them in gay, sexual things. And honestly, you're not doing the gay community any favors. In fact, you're hurting us, okay? We have already had a reputation of being pedophiles and being perverts and deviants. We don't need you to bring your children around. So you keep your kids at home, or take them to Disneyland, or take them to Chuck E. Cheese. But if you need your child to be entertained by a big human in a costume or in makeup, take them to the circus or something. When they turn 18, then why don't you take them to the clubs on their 18th birthday? Because it's an adult thing, okay? So don't ruin your child's life, and don't ruin us, because that's what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think that's the most kind of common sense approach. Like, it is not something for children. Now, there are people out there who just are like, well, your kids are innocent. Like, I've seen comments like that. I'm like, bro, that's really weird. Like, when you try to push back, like, that kids, you want to protect their innocence, and they're like, they're not innocent. Which, again, I've mentioned Arthur Kinsey a couple times, but he was someone who really pushed for the sexual revolution in the United States, and wasn't a fan of Judeo-Christian values, and believed that children, pushes the idea that children are always sexual, and used in his book a chart that was given to him from a pedophile who abused kids and kept detailed notes. And there were other people who would send in that kind of information to him, and they were more, they wanted that information, to protect that information, than they wanted to protect kids, obviously. And they wouldn't cooperate with police, Congress, or anybody. They would rather destroy their records, is what the people said. So um I don't understand. I don't understand. And there's people who talk about, like, expression. Like, there's so many different ways to express yourself. Like, I've been a singer my whole life, we colored in school and did all sorts of things. It's really weird. And do schools, like, have guests like that all the time, like, come in? Like, I remember having, like, police, maybe like a community thing, but most of the time you didn't. And I remember, like, um you'd have, like, motivational speakers who, like, came out of poverty or something like that, maybe at a school program thing. But to have, like, drag queens come and put on, like, dance performances where they, like, have their, like, crotch right up in the air and their butt, like, it's weird, guys. It's perverse. And again, it's not doing any favors to the LGBT community either. These people who want to intermix all this stuff, and then they gaslight you if you care. Like, the video I released with Dana Nessel, and I'll just explain what it is, but I do encourage you guys to go watch it. I did share it on my social media, but if you can go to the website and go to look at videos, and it's there. One of the things, well, it takes her words from the other day when she was at this event talking about drag queens are fun, they're entertainment, and they can, when your kids are having emotional issues, they can lift them up. And I'm like, there's so many other people who can do that besides a drag queen. It's really weird. So anyway, I have her words, and just different videos of drag queen stuff that's happened across the country, like the thing that happened in Texas where they were at the It's Not Gonna Look Itself place, school performances where they had really perverse kind of stuff going on. That's and someone commented on Twitter, because it was retweeted by the Michigan Republican GOP co-chair, Tudor Dixon, who's running for governor, also retweeted it. And so someone was like, had like a pile of manure, and they're like, this is your views summed up in one gif. And I think they were talking to maybe Tudor Dixon. I don't know if they were talking specifically to me, but like, what part of the video did you think was okay? Like, what part are you endorsing? Like, when someone is, like, doing spread eagle or like, I guess spread eagle's not the phrase, but they were, it's kind of like a reverse because their butt was hanging out. I don't know. I don't know positions. But I'm like, what part are you okay with? Like, why can't people just come together and say some things are not okay? Like, it's okay. I don't think drag or any of this stuff is like, this is not my thing, and I think a lot of that stuff is perverse. But to do this with kids, to do it with kids, aiming specifically at kids is gross. So why can't everyone just come together and say, you know what? If adults can do what adults want to do, but adult business is adult business. It's literally like adult business. Like, literally. Why can't everyone just come together and agree with that? Why do you have the mayor of New York tweeting stuff like this? Tweeting stuff like this and stuff like making ads, billboards, or whatever, saying, "Hey, people in Florida upset about they say that don't say gay bill, but the parental rights and education bill aimed at protecting children and yes, their innocence." If you're mad about that, come to New York because we won't, like, what? Because you won't protect the innocence of the children. It's just weird. It's just really weird. So I don't understand why they want to die on this hill. Not in the least bit. Yesterday, I told you guys that Facebook has been like on the how they set up the pages, which I don't really love because it's kind of hard for me to go between my normal profile and the black tea profile. But I'm not following anyone on my black tea page yet. Maybe I need to go just follow a bunch of conservative accounts so they don't keep sending me up suggesting all this garbage. But they're suggesting all these things that, like, I keep like saying not interested and like hitting the X button and stuff, but things keep popping up from like the same pages that I keep saying I don't want to see from. And one of those pages, that's this one, Democrats for Liberty, and they had this on their Facebook page. I'd rather have RuPaul watching my kids than Rand Paul. And they quoted someone, they gave credit to this person, and I looked them up on Twitter. It's not a big account, it's just got a couple different people following it, but someone was like, you know what, that random user had a good idea, because let me go ahead and put that up and post that out into the world. This is so dumb. Like, why would you rather have RuPaul watching your kids than Rand Paul? Just because you don't like Rand Paul? Just because you don't like the views of Rand Paul. If Rand Paul had some really obscure views on stuff, maybe, like, if he was like the senator from California, state senator, who was like, yeah, we're gonna lower penalties for giving people AIDS. I probably wouldn't want a legislator like that around my kids. But like Rand Paul, people, like, I understand a lot of people don't like Rand Paul, but Rand Paul is, I don't agree with that Rand Paul and everything, but he's a very principled guy. He's an eye surgeon, man. So I started looking at some stuff about Rand Paul. You know, Rand Paul would give like free surgeries and exams to low income families. Did you know that? But yeah, RuPaul, you'd rather have watching your kids. It's so stupid. So going into that, I was reflecting on Rand Paul today, and I did a TikTok about this, but I wanted to talk about this here. You guys know there's the clown Charles Booker who's running against Rand Paul in Kentucky, and he's the first Black nominee for the Senate for them. And he did a video where he had a noose around his neck, and I was hot about that. It was so stupid. Just no self-respecting Black person would just do something like that. It was just crazy. It's just a ludicrous ad, but he's trying to invoke some feelings. And then he lists 3 reasons why he believes, I mean, essentially he's making a list for Rand Paul to like equate him as some kind of racist, which Rand Paul of all people, it's just not going to fly if you're aware of like Rand Paul and the sorts of things that he's just fought for equality of all people and making sure he wants like not to have too many laws that hurt a lot of people from that happen to be people of color. It's just crazy. He's just the wrong person. Like when he introduced the Breonna Taylor Act or whatever it was to stop like no knock warrants after she was killed, but they didn't care. They attacked him at the RNC meeting coming out and stuff. They just hate Rand Paul because he's not a Democrat, right? If you disagree with the Republicans and they have a newfound respect for you, like, oh, they're principled. But if you're actually principled and you stick with your principles, the things that you believe, and it happens to disagree with the Democrats, then you're a bad person. They just hate Rand Paul. So one of the things that Booker mentioned, and this isn't Cory Booker, it's Charles Booker. Like we need two dumb Bookers in the Senate, but Charles Booker, he was one of the things he listed was that Rand Paul compared slavery to an expansion of healthcare. I think is how Booker put it. Now, by expansion of healthcare, I assume he means universal healthcare, which a lot of people dislike universal healthcare and don't want the government in their healthcare. Now, if you are on the fence about that and you think that universal healthcare is a good thing, I just advise you to look at the pandemic and just consider the fact that the OSHA mandates got struck down, but the mandates for like people working in hospitals and nursing homes and other stuff, that ended up staying in place because they're like, well, they get federal funds. So because of the federal funds, the government can violate your bodily autonomy and make you inject stuff in you if you want to keep a job. So that's ultimately what it came down to. I thought it was a wrong decision, but that was the decision that they made. So you have to understand, if the government's money is involved, it comes with strings attached. And so their goal is really to destroy the private healthcare market and to have basically I don't know if you can totally destroy it, but they do basically want to do that, have everyone doing like the government healthcare stuff. That's their end game. That's their goal. So with that in mind, do you really want the government to be the one who can enforce what goes on in your life because your healthcare is tied to them? I think it's a bad idea. I think it's an extraordinarily bad idea. These same people who look you in the eye and you could be talking about a baby at 19 weeks and they'll be like, you know what, that's really the mother's choice though. And then they'll have entire conversations as if there is not a human there. They'll just call it reproductive freedom, except, stuff like that, just totally ignoring the humanity and the science of that baby because that's what their ideology dictates. You really want someone who can warp reality like that in charge of what happens to your body? I wouldn't. Do you want people who was responsible for the Tuskegee experiments? And I know that was a while ago, but it was recent enough that was it Clinton who apologized for that? It wasn't that long ago. It was close enough to be concerned. Close enough to be concerned. Where they're like doing experiments where they said they're giving people a cure for like syphilis and they weren't really. Just wanted to see how it interacted with black people, or they wanted to examine how far the effects would go and stuff. It wasn't that long ago. So those are government, CDC, all that kind of stuff, responsible for that. And there was a doctor who was involved with that who did way shadier stuff in another country that they brought on board for that. So I'm just like, it's just messed up. It's just really messed up. I don't think it's a good idea for the government to have that much authority and power over your healthcare. So there's that. There's also the fact that healthcare is not a right, right? And people get really upset when you say that. So Rand Paul's position is, I'm a doctor. Like, he's an eye surgeon. My labor is not entitled. You're not entitled to my labor. If you have an entitlement, if you're entitled to my labor, like, that makes me a slave. I don't have a choice in the matter. It's not a commodity. Like, I have to give you the service. I don't have a say in that. Can't be compensated. We can't trade, or anything like that. Yeah, I'm a slave. Is he being whipped and all this? I don't know what you want to do to make him comply. Now, I know that's not what people have in mind when they want like universal healthcare. They say that healthcare should be free, but because I believe they believe that doctors and nurses should be paid, they just don't want to be the ones paying the bill. But if you're not paying the bill, who do you think is paying the bill? It's going to be your neighbor down the street who's a teacher. It's going to be the small business owner across the street. Those are the people who are going to pay. I mean, maybe you don't pay any taxes at all. I don't know, but someone has to pay. The government doesn't just get their money from nowhere. They get it from us, and they're broke. Like we're like big debt. They just keep printing stuff and ruining the value of our dollar and contributing to the crisis that we're in. So Rand Paul is correct that it's not a right, it's a commodity. You have your natural rights, it's stuff that you're born with, right? Your right to life, etc. But you don't come out the womb with a doctor attached with a degree that's there to serve you. That's not what happens. It's a commodity. So Rand Paul's acknowledging that it's not a right, that it's a commodity, that you're not entitled to his labor, they equate to like slavery. And people think it's so mean that you won't get on board for universal health care. And so I gave you a couple of reasons why I'm not a fan of the idea of it. But as I said, Rand Paul, with his practice, he would give out free exams to low-income people, and he also has done surgeries pro bono. And he said he believed that is his Christian duty. So NPR did an article about that earlier some years ago when he was running for president. And so here's a little snippet of the article. I just found this out today. He founded an eye care clinic to income low people. Paul founded the Southern Kentucky Lions Eye Clinic, which provides free exams and surgeries to those in need. In 1995, the senator told National Review in 2013 that he has performed more than 100 pro bono surgeries. There's a philosophic debate which often gets me in trouble, on whether healthcare is a right or not, he said at a Q&A at the University of Louisville. I think we as physicians have an obligation. As Christians, we have an obligation. I really believe that, and it's a deep-held belief. So when people talk about, there's people on the left who think it's compassionate to have the government take care of all this stuff, and that's why we need to raise the taxes and tax the rich and all this other kind of stuff so they can pay for health care, pay for college, not to pay for rent, UBI, whatever. Like they feel that it's compassionate to redistribute other people's money. That's what they believe. On the right, we're like, no, that doesn't sound compassionate to have the government confiscate stuff and to just dish out stuff. That's not compassionate. And that's also not charity. You're not a kind person because you held up a sign and said tax Elon Musk or something like that. That doesn't make you a good person to do that. Now, taking out some time, giving back in the community, I mean, that doesn't necessarily make you a good person either, but that is, it helps more along the way, being actually charitable. That's what we call personal responsibility. So Rand Paul acknowledges that as someone who has this capability, who has gone out there and acquired those skills with time and money, etc., to become a doctor, that it's still his obligation to give back, not just as a doctor, as a physician, but as someone who is a Christian. That is part of their creed, to give back to other folks. So that is personal responsibility, and that is something that we believe in on the right. But saying, hey, the government is supposed to take care of these things, that is not that is not compassion. That is not. And I'm not saying that you should get rid of all the social programs and other stuff like that, but I'm just saying people want to rely on these things and make the government so big, but the government does not do things out of the kindness of their hearts. They may say that, but there's always an agenda. There's someone else getting paid behind the scenes. There's some subsidies or whatever. I talked the other day about how school lunch wasn't, I don't know, maybe some was like, we got to feed the kids, but they wanted subsidies for farmers and stuff. So there's always some kind of ulterior motive. And I read an article, I think it was Washington Post, and they were talking about how they were trying to get fish on the menu because they wanted to make from Alaska, because Alaska wanted part of the deal. So there's always politics with these things. But if you want to give back, you can. As a matter of fact, if you like the idea of someone else covering your medical bills slash you covering their medical bills, there's different programs that you can enter right now. That's kind of like a pool, a healthcare pool like that. Um, there's a Christian company that does that. Let's just like they're like believers pay for other believers. You could do something like that. You could form something like that. No one is stopping you for your like small version of universal healthcare, but you just want someone else to fit the bill. A lot of these people just want someone else to fit the bill. So Rand Paul's not a bad guy. I understand people don't like him, but Rand Paul's really not a bad guy. And this Charles Booker, he's going to lose. But do you have to be such a jerk all the way down? I I hope it's just a blowout. I really do. I really do. Rand Paul he suffered a lot for Kentucky in this Senate, been shot at, attacked by his crazy neighbor. And he had like a lung that was punctured. Had to have surgery and stuff. Um, when he also was attacked by like a mob at the RNC when leaving the RNC convention, and he didn't deserve to get harassed by that mob. He didn't deserve if they cared at all about policy and stuff and knew anything about Rand Paul, they wouldn't have attacked Rand Paul. Rand Paul is someone who's if you want to get serious about some of these issues like police reform and other stuff like that, you need a libertarian Republican man like Rand Paul. But ultimately, these people care more about dogma than actual results. So I just wanted to point that out. I just wanted to point that out. Well, that is the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please go blacktnews.com. Check out different articles that I have on the website. Please make sure that you join in tomorrow. Again, the Equal Rights Institute will be my guest. Emily will be representing them. She's the one who runs like the TikTok page and stuff. But this group helps pro-lifers make better arguments. So it'll be she's far more patient with some of these people on the internet than I am. So we're going to be looking at different pro-choice videos and stuff, and some of them I'm sure will be wild and we might get a laugh out of some of them, but I don't know her like that, so I don't know. I'm projecting, I suppose. I laugh, but we'll also try to look at some more compelling ones. And if you guys have questions, make sure you're watching live and you're putting them in the chat. And we'll try to get to them and address them. I know not everyone who watches is pro-life, and I hope you change your mind. But if you have any questions, go ahead and be part of the discussion, because it is going to be a discussion, and I've learned some things from Emily too, and I'm excited about it. So please join us tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it'll be on Facebook, on YouTube, and it will be on Twitch. And of course, my handles are at Black Tea News with all three of those. So very easy to find, but you're already watching live, so I suppose you know how to find me. So also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com. Please consider checking out different merchandise that I have on the website. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. And if not tomorrow night, I will see you Monday for more Black Tea.